Welcome to UK Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host, UK Ketchadori.
Hi guys, welcome back to another very special episode. Today is another week that I have with me somebody that I respect, who has come to my attention following the work she's doing with ladies over there in Canada. Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever wished you know how to move from one goal to another and do it in such a way that it will give you a sense of meaning? And at the end of it, you live a life that you truly want. Well, if you do, you might learn one or two things in our conversation here today. And on the show, I'm joined by Lisa Michaud. Lisa, who has an extremely powerful story that I hope will encourage you, because it did encourage me. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Incredible. One of the things I love about Lisa is she believes in helping others from what she has personally learned in her life. And having experienced a health scare at the age of 27, she discovered that certain things that hold her back were not that important. And then she worked on to eliminate those things and created a lifestyle that she wanted in a fairly short space of time. Lisa, without me, messing up your story, please tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the main topic of today.
Oh, thank you. So, let me share a little bit about my health scare and what that experience was. So, if I was to take you back in my life about 6-7 years, and you can do the math, how old I am now, I was living a very different life. I was living in a small town in northern Canada. I had just recently gotten married. My husband and I have both had really good 6-figure careers. We bought a house. We were traveling. We had good friends. Everything was going really well. We'd ticked all the regular boxes of success, if you will, in life.
Yes.
And that is when I had that scare. And my health scare basically came up, and I had this realization that I might only have a year or two left to live.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at my husband that night, and I turned around, looked at him in bed, and I said, honey, what do you want to do? What are we going to do if I only have a year or two left to live? And he's a logical, super pragmatic guy. So he turned around and he said, Lisa, what do you want to do? You're the one that has a timeline.
Oh,
and he's a smart man, right?
Yeah, really, absolutely.
Yeah. And, he just said, what do you want to do? And the first thing that came to my mind and my heart was move to Vancouver. And that was a dream. And I think we all have these dreams. We all have things that we want to have as children. And for me, one of those dreams was to live in the city and to live in Vancouver. I would come to the city with my parents. I'd come here for a dance convention, and they would fall asleep in the hotel room. And I would sneak out and go to the window and pull open the curtains and look at the city lights and just dream about living there. And every time I came, I had this sense of being home. And then as I got older, I realized, well, first of all, I was 11 years old. I couldn't move out yet. And so I stayed in a small town. And then my university was in a different town. And then my job was in a different town. And my boyfriend was in a different place. And then my job was in a different place. And then my mortgage was in a different city. And Vancouver became very, very expensive. And what my dream felt like is it felt like this whole list of reasons why I couldn't. And it felt unrealistic, unachievable for me, to be really honest with you. But in that moment, laying in bed, and I had to really ask myself, am I going to listen to these reasons why I can't? And it was a long list. Add to that, my husband is a small town boy. We have a quad, an ATV kind of thing. Like, what are we going to do with that in the city?
Yes.
And I really had to think about it. Well, do I want to listen to all these reasons why I can't, or am I going to find a way to make it happen? And in that moment, my husband and I decided, let's find a way to make it possible. Like, let's not live our life for these excuses, but let's find a way to make these things possible. So I'm very lucky that was just a scare, and I'm healthy today.
You know what?
But it made me realize.
What you just said there, living life on what's possible. Really, if anyone is listening, for me, that speaks volume. The moment you shift from living for what you can't do to what you can do, it is a game changer. And I love that you say that.
Thank you for saying, honestly, if you take away nothing else from this conversation, but just that that question of how is it possible for whatever it is that you want, it absolutely changes the game. I don't know how or why when we grow up we start to build this list of reasons why we can't, but I want more people to grow up listing why they can and how it's possible. That changes everything.
Yeah.
So I love that you said that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's, it took us a few months, but we quit our jobs, we sold our house, we sold cars, we sold a lot of stuff. And I am sitting here in downtown Vancouver getting to connect with you today. So it's really a very much a dream come true to get to do this and get to be here. And that's the attitude that I try and bring to everything that I do. And imperfectly, sometimes it's solid and sometimes it's challenging, but really ask myself, whatever it is that I want to do, how is it possible? How can I do it?
Yeah. And one of the things I love about that is once you started living your dream, you found yourself perhaps getting back into a place where you were thinking, I can't do this, because you were telling me a story about when you were looking for a job. And maybe you could share that with our audience here today.
Absolutely. The phrase "old habits die hard" comes to mind when you say that. So it was. I don't want to say it was easy, but in a lot of senses, the move to Vancouver, we made it happen. It was like I had this fire under my butt, and here I was going, and my husband and I were both on board. We had this scare, and so it really motivated us to get going and get moving. But when I moved to the city, I was telling you before that I started looking for a job because that's what you do, right? I was 27. I needed jobs to survive here. And I was looking at these job descriptions and going to interviews. And this one description in particular, I read it and it was this great company. It sounded like an awesome organization and it should have been the perfect job. And by the way, anytime you hear yourself or somebody else saying things like should have been, that's usually a clue that it's not actually what you want. Mm-hmm. And that was a clue. I looked at it and I thought, wow, why am I not excited? And I just started reflecting. And I had that moment again, that realization. And the realization was because I don't want a job. I want to start my business. And I wanted to start a business for years. I went to business school. I have a double major in accounting and finance. And yet just like I had with Vancouver, I had a list of why I couldn't start a business yet. And on that list was, I don't have the right idea yet. I don't know what I'm doing. I need more experience. I need X amount of dollars in my bank account. I need my kids to move out before I can start a business. And I didn't even have a kid then. And I was already waiting for her to move out before I could do what I wanted to do. And so it was just, I realized, oh my gosh, here I am doing it again. This thing that I want to do, that I even started down the path of, I am pushing it off again. And that's what really made me realize that, we definitely, sometimes we need that. We need a motivation. We need an initial motivation to get us moving, but it's not always as simple as just having a scare or even having a pandemic or losing somebody close to you or losing a job. To change who you are or to change how you show up is not a one-time moment. Yeah. It's actually the culmination of habits, of mindset, and of how we show up consistently more often than not. And that's what makes the difference. And that's what I needed to learn. That's what I need to figure out, as how I could turn that, my example or my story, my success of moving from this small town to moving to Vancouver, achieving my dream. How could I make that not just a one-time thing, but something I do over and over again? And then what I've done now is, how did I help other people do that too? How do I help other women do that in their lives as well?
Yeah, it's so true. I really love that you have created a system that anyone can actually apply in their lives and get the same momentum. I'll tell you a story. When I got started, Lisa, I went to Tony Robbins' event. You may be familiar with him, and I know most of my audience know that I'm a Tony Robbins fan. I got this surge of momentum, started with my outsourcing company straight away. But, as you're running your business, you get in this flow of doing things, literally responding to queries, marketing and all that, to the point that you could lose yourself in all of it, especially if you don't take time out and work on yourself. It wasn't until I discovered that I needed something that keeps me going rather than just be a doing person, but actually growing into becoming a being person, that person who actually becoming what I want to do. So it's incredible what you've created. Now, I know we're going to talk about your system, shortly. But if you were to do it all over again, knowing what you know now, Lisa, what would you do differently? Because you are helping a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for sharing too your story. I think like what you said just is so powerful. It's not even just about the doing, it's about the being, right?
Yeah.
And who you're becoming and remembering that vision and working towards that. I think for myself, to be honest, I don't know that I would change anything because I think everything that I've experienced, I've been able to learn something from it and take something away from it. And even, like for example, my voice is something that as a child I grew up hating. I was made fun of it sometimes. I felt really self-conscious about it. And it took me a long time to get comfortable with my voice and to feel good about my voice. Mm-hmm. And now here I am on this podcast with you. I have my own podcast. I'm actually a speaker. I speak at events. And now I really love my voice, but it's been a transition and it's been a transformation. And like would I go back and say, I wish people hadn't made fun of me, or I wish I hadn't been so devastated about it. I wish I hadn't hated it so much. I mean, maybe, but now when I talk to a woman who also hates something about herself or has been self-conscious about something in her life, or if she had a dream that she also put on the back burner, I can actually come from a place of understanding and share tools and things that may have helped me, and also ask her the right questions to work through that herself. So I think that every single thing that I've been through, good or bad, there's something that I've learned from it. And then I think it's just part of the human experience. I think for a long time as a coach, especially, I thought I had to be perfect. I thought I had to have everything together. I had to have everything figured out because no one would want to work with me unless I had it all figured out. And what I've learned is that actually it's through all the mistakes that I continue to make, through the times that I still fall down, the failures I still have, and I come back from that. I show my resiliency. I grow my resiliency. I grow my courage. I become stronger. I become more confident in who I am. I learn more. That is actually what makes me a better speaker, a better coach, a better teacher, a better mom, a better version of me. So I would say I wouldn't change any of it because otherwise I wouldn't learn and know what I have now, and I wouldn't be able to speak from a place of honesty and from a place that I understand. I've been there. Here's some of the things that have helped me that might help you, and how do we help others? So that's probably not the answer you're looking for, but that's the truth.
This is absolutely the answer I was looking for. In fact, recently we were talking about life happens for you, not against you. Anything that is happening in your life right now is helping you move towards a certain direction, which you had set up in your intention probably a long time ago. Everything is working together. It's a concept we've been talking about in most recently. And to hear you talk about it without prompting you as to that, it's such a blessing, and I appreciate that. By the way, if you're listening, you want to check out the podcast, the Golden Girls podcast, where Lisa has done so well. In fact, I listened to your podcast actually before we jumped on this one, where you were talking to this lady about the vision, living your life. I think number 42 it is. It's incredible. I think everybody should listen to that. It was so good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Let's talk about the system you created. Just rewind a little bit. After you discovered, you need to live life on what's possible from the health scare. You then went on to creating your life as you wanted. And then you created a system that maintained you to live continuously and in the right direction. Let's talk about that for a moment. Maybe cover 2 or 3 points that you feel will be appropriate for our audience now.
Yeah, thanks for giving me this chance. So what I realized through that process of me, making a big change and then not being able to actually do more is that there was a couple things that have to happen when it comes to any kind of a goal in your life or anything you're trying to achieve or create, whether it's business or personal or financial or health wise. And the first thing is that you really have to understand what it is that you actually want. And you have to allow that. Don't make yourself wrong for that, really allow whatever that is for you to want it. The second thing is that you have to have the courage, and this is where this also gets challenging, the courage to actually say it out loud and say it to yourself and say it to others that you're actually going to go for it.
Yeah.
The third part is that you need to have some sort of a plan. Like you don't need to know everything. And I think that that's actually one thing that I really don't like SMART goals. I don't think you need to know all the steps. You'll never know all the steps, but you need to at least have a few, what's the first step? Or when am I approximately going to do this? Or what do I want to achieve? You got to have some sense of a plan. Mm-hmm. And then the fourth thing is you really have to get out of your own way to make it happen. And when I say that is, get out of your own way, like let go of the habits, the mindset, those parts that are no longer serving you, limiting beliefs and stories, and instead create the ones that are going to allow you to become who you want to become. So those are the four things that I see are really important in any kind of a transformation, any kind of a goal, anything you're trying to achieve is knowing what you actually want, having the courage to claim it, making at least some sort of a plan to get there, and then getting out of your own way to make it happen. Yeah. So what I found is, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but please go ahead. I'm following this. This is wonderful. Absolutely brilliant.
Oh, thanks. A lot of mistakes and falling down to be like, what is missing? And then I've pieced it all together. But one of the other things I realized as well is that a lot of times, and I believe actually even Tony Robbins has said this, that we overestimate what we can do in a year and we underestimate what we can do in 5 years. And that was another really big thing that I noticed for myself and for others, I think entrepreneurs especially. We try and build a business that normally takes 5 or 10 years. And we try and build it in 6 months. And so what, yeah, okay, you're laughing. So you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you mean.
Yes, I've made that mistake too.
Yeah.
So what I created is a 100-day goal system. So the first part of it is really important, is to actually figure out what it is that you truly want. And, full disclosure, you're not going to be able to do all of the things in 100 days. But if you can first get a sense of what are all the things that you do want, then you can look and say, okay, what is the first thing that feels good to tackle? What is the first thing I want to move the needle on? A really great book about this is called The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And they call it the focusing question. They say, what's the one thing I could do that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? And that's sort of a philosophy that I think is really good when you think about what's the first goal I could tackle? What's the first thing I'm going to do? So for me, it was that move to Vancouver. That was like that first thing that was like, okay, I just like, this is what I'm meant to do. This is where I'm meant to be. When I was looking for a job, or like for, I guess, the deeper meaning of it, as I was looking for a purpose, I was looking for somewhere to contribute to society and earn a living. That's what that was. And it was like, hey, that's what's got to happen here. And that's where I started my business. So for each person, like that's a great place to start, is what's one thing that if I did it, it would make everything else easier or unnecessary. And I encourage people to just pick one goal and focus on it for 100 days. So 100 days, that is your focus. That's the thing. You're listening. If you're a podcast listener, which you probably are, if you're listening to this, listen to podcasts on that topic, read a book on that topic, have conversations or networking related to that goal, that thing you're working on. Make time for that one thing, as opposed to trying to run a marathon, start your blog, run a YouTube channel, also get another side hustle going, find your dream partner, travel around the world. We try to do all these things at once, and it just doesn't work.
Wow.
So it's very simple. It's just one goal, 100 days. Do it.
I wish somebody had shared this with me right at the beginning of my journey as an entrepreneur. It would have saved me a lot of headache. And if you're listening, maybe you're starting out, this alone, has the power of focus. People fail because of broken focus. If you can focus, really dedicate yourself to this concept, it's amazing how you become one with your goal, to the point that you begin to observe opportunities that are linked to that otherwise you would have missed. Incredible. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think as entrepreneurs, we're often really multi-passionate. We're very excited. We love what we're doing. We see the opportunities and we want to go for them. And that's what makes us really special. So it makes us entrepreneurs. But it's also can be something that really takes away from your ability to actually follow through on something, because you're trying to do too many things. So what I also do is I also always keep a list of my next goals. Like, what are the things I'm going to do next? Because they always inevitably comes up. It's like, okay, for example, I want to improve the SEO on my podcast, or I want to optimize my customer service process, or I want to, my lead magnets, how do I, make those more effective? Like these are all great ideas that I have. And what I do is I keep a note on my phone, or now I have it in my planner. There's a page in my planner that says, these are the projects I'm going to tackle later. These are the things I'm going to do next. So that also allows me to still honor like great ideas that I have, the things that I want to do. And if you're listening, that's a great way for you to do it too. Put a note on your phone, put a board in your office where you can list out future projects, and trust that you'll come back to them in 100 days. And then you can tackle the next one. But and you can probably, if you've been an entrepreneur for any amount of time, you know that trying to do everything isn't working. So this is a way to tackle that.
Yeah, amazing. You mentioned about having courage. Talk to us about that second step.
Courage. Yeah. Well, I think so many times in our lives, we start to hide. So I think we do this unconsciously and consciously in some ways, but throughout life, I'll give you an example in my life. When I was in grade 2, I always loved to speak. I mean, my parents will tell you that I was always talking. And I was actually told that I was doing show and tell too much in my class. And my teacher literally said, okay, you cannot do show and tell anymore, Lisa, because you're talking too much and you're taking away from the other kids.
Oh.
And it was messages. Yeah. Right. As a kid, though, I just took that as truth. I took that as I talk too much, I'm too loud. And when I speak, I take away from other people. And so those are the messages that unconsciously got put into my head. And I know I'm not the only one. Like a lot of people listening will probably, there's some time that you've been told you're too quiet, or you're too loud, or you talk too much, or you don't talk enough, or you dream too big. How many times have we been told, money doesn't grow on trees, or who do you think you are? All those kinds of thoughts come in, and they get planted. And I don't share that because I think the teacher was a horrible person or anything like that. I think she was also doing her best, and our parents are often doing their best. But these are the things that we grow up learning and attaching to. And so I think a big part of confidence is unlearning those things, of realizing, okay, this thought that when I speak, I take away from other people. I've literally had to deconstruct that and say, is that actually the truth? When I speak, am I always taking away from other people? And also sometimes borrowing beliefs. Would Oprah believe that when she speaks that she takes away from other people? No, she understands the power of her voice and the power of her message and the power of what she does. So I think oftentimes, I hope that I'm changing this for my daughter. I hope that we can change this for future generations. But for us, if we're listening to this in 2021 or, in the next 15, 20 years, like we have learned a lot of these kinds of messages. And I think courage comes down to figuring out what are the thoughts or beliefs that you may have that are no longer serving you? And how do you create the beliefs that are going to allow you to be courageous, that are going to allow you to go for what you want in your life, no matter how unrealistic it is, no matter how loud it's going to mean that you're going to be, no matter who might get mad when you do it, for us to still remember that this is who I want to be, this is who I'm meant to be, this is what I'm put on this earth to do. And I can only do that if I am courageous. I can only do that if I don't listen to the things that keep me small, and instead I step into who I really am becoming, who I'm meant to be.
Yeah. This is incredible, Lisa, what you're sharing with us here. And for those who are listening, I encourage you to check out Lisa's work on the website. It will be at the bottom of this recording. Lisa, I want to talk about something you're very passionate about, which is the values. You and I know that, your values decide the goals that you set, and also ultimately decide how much you're going to follow after those goals, what type of life you're going to live, after that. Can we spend some time talking about values and your system of creating the values that truly mean something to the listeners?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up. I think most of us maybe grew up, or if you've ever worked with a counselor or been in like a CAP class, career prep class, you maybe have done the exercise where they give you a list of 500 words and you circle the ones that you think are your values.
Yeah.
You've never done that?
I've done that, yes.
Yes, exactly. And I made my husband do it. We've done it too. But what I've realized is that a lot of the times we circle the values that we think we should have versus what our true values are. So, for example, if you have kids or a partner, you're probably going to circle family as a value. A lot of times people circle environment as a value. A lot of times people might circle faith as a value. And it's not that those things are not important, but there's a different way of looking at values. And so this is how I learned through my coach training, how I learned to look at values and what I then take and work with my clients on. So instead of looking at values as like a circle the word, and as you're listening, you can do this as well. What I encourage you to do instead is to start with themes. Right. So ask yourself some questions, and I'll give you a few examples. Get to know you. So ask yourself some questions like, where am I spending the majority of my time? Look at your calendar. Where is your time being spent? Look at your bank statement. Where are you spending the most of your money? And what's the money you enjoy spending? And what's the money you look at and it's like, someone steal my credit card again? Come on, what happened here? What's the money you're like, oh, I wish I had spent that, right? Yeah. Think about the 3 people in your life that you really respect. Think about 3 movies that you really love and ask yourself why. Look at your life and ask, what are things that really make me angry? Think about the things that really make you want to scream. What are things that really make you mad? Yeah. And you can do this, on your own. You can do this with talking it out loud. You can journal this. You can do it with a partner. But ask yourself those are like 5 questions that you can ask on your own. And as you look through the answers of that, then what you can do is pull out the themes and pull out what the ideas are. Because chances are that there are some consistent themes that run through all of those things. And you'll notice I asked you about things like movies, time, money, even your own, the things that make you angry, who frustrates you to no end, those things. So very different things, but you'll notice that throughout all of those things, there are consistent themes that really make you happy or light you up, or that really trigger you and make you angry. And that is how you can figure out what your values truly are. Because what I have found is that your value is not actually family. Your value is you often have a different value, which is like how you want to show up for your family. So for example, one of my values, and I've made mine really fun. Mine are usually they just happen to be this way. One of my values is called Lady Gaga. One of them is girls just want to have fun. That won't make any sense to you, but to me, I get, I'm laughing. It makes sense to me. So one of those values is girls just want to have fun. So that means that girls just want to have fun is how I show up, not just to, a dance party, but it's also how I show up to this podcast interview with you. I want to make sure we have some laughs. Yeah. It's also how I show up as the mom. I want to have dance parties with my kid. It's also how I show up in my relationship, that I make sure we have time to go and play together and do fun things. And so you can see how when you understand the theme or your actual value, it can apply to any aspect of your life, as opposed to, I value family. That doesn't actually tell me how to show up with my family or how I want to be with my family. It doesn't actually tell me anything. When I say one of my values is environment or faith, I don't actually understand what to be or what to do in that. But when I understand that, say my value is that girls just want to have fun, or my Lady Gaga is around being really authentic and vulnerable and being myself, well, then I understand. I can actually say, okay, now I know how I want to show up for my faith, or how I want to show up in my bank account. You can probably imagine what girls just want to have fun looks like on a credit card. Luckily, that's also not my husband's. We balance each other out. Let's just say that. But that just gives you an idea of how when you understand your theme, then you can look at your business. Then you can look at the way you spend your time. You can look at the way you spend your money and honor your values in that way, instead of trying to figure out, well, what does it even mean if family is a value? Does that make sense? Absolutely.
And of course, you can build your goals around that, because you know what's driving you, and automatically those goals are in line with what you truly want. And that's what life is all about: living on purpose, living the way you want to live, and not doing it because somebody else told you that this is something to go after. And,
exactly.
I totally love it. I know you work with a lot of ladies at the moment who may be going through, what are some of the difficulties they come across when it comes to identifying their values, or really going through this process that you may want to highlight for our listeners, and maybe you can suggest how to go about doing that?
Yeah, so I think number one, a lot of people have never even done this. Yeah. Most people have not actually had the opportunity to go that deep, again, beyond the circle the words exercise. So I think even just that is really transformational. And I have people, I've done workshops on values before, and I have people coming back to me a year or two later, and just happened to me last week where they say, wow, I did that. Like that workshop was amazing. It transformed the whole way I looked at my life in the last year or two. And that's pretty cool. So I think even just that, if you take what I just shared with you, and actually I have podcast episode 13, I have even more on values. If you guys want to listen to that, there's a little bit, I go into a little more detail on that as well. But that's kind of the first thing, is I think a lot of people don't even give themselves time and space and permission to necessarily do that and figure that out. Some of the other things I think competing values is something that's challenging. And I won't sugarcoat this. It can be hard because sometimes our values, for example, you may have a value that is something like girls just want to have fun. And you may also have a value around, let's say, for example, legacy. And maybe legacy means that you want to create a legacy as far as the work that you're doing, or maybe legacy in your finances in terms of, you want to donate to a certain cause or leave money for your children or something like that. And so that kind of a value can bump up against a value, like, for example, girls just want to have fun. If I only lived that value, I would be spending all my money and never be working. It would be so much fun, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's an important thing that I think is something that's really difficult sometimes, is to balance those competing values. And I would say that's probably, like, values can be very helpful sometimes when you're making decisions. It's a great tool. Actually look at your values and say, which decision here honors my values? But it can also be challenging when some of your values are being, they're competing against each other. And that's where I always go back to, okay, you don't have to put either of those values on the shelf forever. But this is a part of the reason why I created the 100-day framework, is because I found 100 days was enough that you could move the needle, that you can make an impact on something and change something in your life. But it wasn't so long that you felt like you were committed to it, like you'd never get to, have fun again, or like you were never going to save money again, or whatever that was. And so that's where I think that's really powerful, to say, you know what, okay, what does it look like for the next 100 days? Like, which of these values or which of these things do I feel like is more important to honor right now? Is it that I want to really focus on building my legacy? And maybe that means focusing on earning more income, or getting a raise, or raising your prices in your business, or, I'm going to do this, create this brand new product to launch in my business, or whatever that is. Maybe that's that focus. Or maybe for the 100 days, you know what, I've actually been working really hard and I'm creating legacy, but right now, this part of me having fun, I'm not having as much fun as I want to be having. And so I'm going to take Friday afternoons off, or I'm going to, maybe I look at, like, how do I even incorporate more fun into my business? Can I, play more music as I'm doing my work? Can we have more fun team meetings? Can we do team building? Like, those are the kinds of things. And so I think values like that, I would say that's probably the biggest challenge with values, is sometimes they compete. But I think being able to say, which one right now do I want to honor? And remember that we can always come back to them later in 100 days. And also then looking at it, like, how can I honor this across all the different aspects of my life? That can be helpful as well.
Outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. We're learning a lot today from you, Lisa. One of the things I truly appreciate about you is you have a system. Maybe you've identified habits that guarantees success that you normally share with your audience. Would you share with us, as we are getting into a new period? A lot of people are setting goals, and there's a lot of things happening there. But in your opinion, would you identify maybe 2 or 3 habits that business owners can start implementing right now that could help them achieve their goal, maybe in 100 days from now, or even a year from now?
Yeah. So let me say, first of all, I think that the number one thing is to think about what is your goal and what kind of habit would support you with that goal. So for example, if your goal is to increase your revenue, and you have a sense that you might do that through a new product, or maybe through a bigger audience, like, you may want to think about, okay, what would it look like then for me to grow my audience? What are the habits that I need in order to do that? And so I think it's really important to have habits that are specific to your goal. That's a really important step that I think a lot of people miss, is to actually think about, like, what am I trying to achieve? And again, goals aren't made, in a snap of a finger. It's actually who we're becoming and what we're doing. So it's a matter of reverse engineering that goal and thinking about what habit do you need for your goal. So I think that's really important. So if you're listening to this, only you know what your goal is, and chances are you probably know what some of those habits are that you could put into place. So trust that. And if you don't know, do some research. What have other successful people that have done it? What kinds of habits did they create? What kinds of things did they do? So I think it's about thinking about, what do you need for your specific goal? Now, I also will share a couple kind of that I think are helpful for anybody, no matter what your goal is, that have been really helpful for me and for my clients too. So number one, the biggest thing I could talk about this all day, so I'll try not to, but weekly planning. So every single week, and I've been doing this for about 11 years now, sit down and look at your week ahead. Be intentional about it. Say, what am I going to do this week towards my goal? And then write it down and actually put the time in your calendar, block that time to do it. So whether your goal is around getting better sleep, well then you better, set aside an hour ahead of bedtime that you're winding down. Like put that actually in your calendar. Maybe it's getting up earlier. Put that into your calendar. Maybe it is spending more intentional time with your family. Put that in your calendar. In those same moments, think about what do I need to feel my best? Because everything we create comes from us. So what do you need to actually thrive and feel good? So this is where, if you want to go for a walk, if you want to connect with a friend, if you want to go to an exercise class, I don't know if you guys are allowed to do that over there these days, but whatever it is you need to thrive, put that in your calendar. And during that time while you're planning, if you're booking a meeting with somebody that you want to have, send out the Zoom link, get that done. If you need to hire a babysitter, go and reach out and hire the babysitter. If you are planning a special night with your partner, order the food so it's going to be delivered to you. Whatever you're going to do, like go ahead and actually set yourself up for success. And if you take, half an hour to an hour, depending on how complicated your schedules are and all that, at the beginning of the week, either, Friday afternoon, Sunday night, whatever work, Monday morning, sit down and actually say, what am I going to do this week? How am I going to move the needle on my goal? And also, how am I going to make sure that I still feel good and that I'm taking care of myself? If you can do that every single week, that habit right there, honestly, I credit so much success to it, because a week time period is enough that you can actually make some progress, but it's not so far that you kind of lose track of where you are. So it's just, you can have a couple of days that are off, Monday, Tuesday. Oh, they were crazy. They were unexpected, but I still have a few more days to catch up and find the time to create the time to do what I want to do. So weekly planning is one of those habits I would say that no matter who you are, no matter what your goal, get in that habit. It is one of the most powerful things that I've ever done in my life. Wow. The second habit I would share that I find is really powerful, I think we don't do this enough, is reflecting. So I also have now started incorporating this in my weekly reflection, or in my weekly planning. I also do a reflection on the last week, what worked, what didn't, what was the biggest challenge that I faced, and what would I advise somebody else in the situation to do, those kinds of questions. And then I also do it monthly. I look back and say, well, how did my last month go? What am I really proud of? What were some of the things maybe that got in my way? And then looking ahead to say, what does that look like now for this month? And using what I've now learned, and especially, that life's happening for me concept, like everything that just happened for me, how can I now use that to show up as my best in the next month ahead? And I think reflection is just so powerful, because in our world, we're from children, we learn certain things, and the world is changing fast. We are constantly changing, and I think we sometimes lose that disconnect to who I really am, what I actually like, what I'm enjoying, what I'm not enjoying, and putting in place markers for reflection. That's what allows you to stay living aligned. That's what allows you to stay living with your values, to pick up on when things aren't working. Wow. Otherwise, we become slaves to our to-do list. We become slaves to the goals that may or may not be meaningful. But by reflecting, that keeps us grounded, keeps us going in the right direction.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. We are coming toward the end of our time, Lisa. You have been knocking it out of the park here today, and we appreciate that. And I'm sure there will be people who want to carry on learning with you. Where can they find you?
Oh, thank you. This has been so much fun. You are just so genuine, and it's really fun to have this conversation with you. So thank you. If anyone wants to get in touch, you can find me at lisamichaud.com. And I'm also very active on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, and even Pinterest at The Lisa Michaud is where you can find me. And I'd love to connect with you. If you want to have a listen to my podcast, it's called Golden Girls Podcast, as in goals, GOAL, Golden Girls Podcast, and it's on every platform as well.
It's wonderful. I definitely vouch for the podcast, because I thought I was going to listen for just a small part so I hear what it's all about. I got hooked and ended up listening to the whole conversation, which was amazing. Love it. And I think you will enjoy it too when you listen to it. Well, if you need more information, we will provide the links below this audio recording for you to just go straight there. And again, we have open sessions for our Lifestyle Mastermind program, which you can register right now. We started last week, and there's still some discounts that are going out there. So with that said, we appreciate you being here, and I look forward to catching up with you very, very soon. Lisa, you've been wonderful. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you for listening to UKAI Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.ukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.